I'm Julie Broughton. This is Take Six. This is when we get together after our new newscast and talk about what we're working on that you'll see later today on News 6. I hope a lot of you got some rest this weekend and are recovering okay from Milton. It is going to be a long road for so many of our friends and neighbors in Central Florida. We'll check in with News 6's Molly Reed coming up in just a few minutes, and she's going to tell us about a group of foodies in Volusia County who started out their mission to support local restaurants in their area. Now they are expanding that mission and they are helping to get food to people who need it as they are recovering from Milton. We're also going to check in on your forecast. I will tell you it is much nicer than we saw last week. We have a taste of fall coming that will arrive by Wednesday. But first, we want to check in with News 6 investigator Erik Sandoval. And Erik, you have a really interesting story for us. You were talking to a man who was wrongly convicted of a crime, spent a couple of years in prison, and now he is suing the city of Orlando. This story just is gut-wrenching to watch.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. And I hope everybody in your family is okay after the storm.
Yes,
Did you
yes.
fare out okay?
Yeah, we did okay. No major damage at our house, a little bit of leak. So we are just, thankful that everything is as good as can be expected. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, we fared out okay.
Good.
Our whole neighborhood is sort of joining together, making sure everybody's good. I'm fortunate to live in a
Yes.
community where we all have our backs and look out for each other, and I'm sure everybody else does too. So
Yes.
we're hoping for the best for everybody here in Central
Hmm.
Florida as we dry out a little bit and get
Absolutely.
everything back to normal.
Yes.
So moving on to the story that I have airing this afternoon, as a rule, part of my job is to go through lawsuits that are filed on a daily basis, just seeing what's going on, seeing if there's any trends. And this one lawsuit that I found in federal court just really caught my eye. It was filed on behalf of a man named George Villa Ramos, and he claimed that he was not only wrongly accused of a crime, but he was wrongly convicted and served 2.5 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. And in the end, the judge agreed with him and threw everything out. But was it too late? That's the question. I think we have our story from this morning that we're ready to show you for a glimpse of what he's going through right now. George Valle Ramos says that he was studying to be an X-ray technician at Anthem College in Orlando when his life was derailed.
I get a knock on the door. I'm thinking it's the maintenance people. And it turned out to be U.S. Marshals, had a warrant for my arrest.
Investigators said his large afro-style hair from a 2-year-old picture matched the description of a man wanted for a nearby burglary. Witnesses picked Valle Ramos out of this photo lineup, and Orlando police arrested him. Were you scared?
I started to get scared when I started going to court, seeing that they were really trying to pin this on me.
So the jury came back with a guilty verdict.
That's right.
You said you were screaming inside before. What were you doing at that point?
I just broke down in tears at that point.
The judge sentenced him to 2.5 years in prison. 9 years after the crime and armed with a new attorney, Valle Ramos secured a new hearing here at the Orange County Courthouse. And it was during that hearing one of the key witnesses fessed up. She said she felt pressured by police to identify him in that photo lineup, and she wasn't sure it was actually him.
Deep down, I always knew she wasn't sure. I said it all the time. They know it wasn't me.
The judge agreed and threw out the case.
Hopefully my story can help somebody else. I consider myself blessed because I got a second chance.
In Orlando, Erik Sandoval, Getting Results, News 6. So I want you to imagine, you're on course for your life doing one thing. He was going to school, studying to be that X-ray technician. Then in one instant, just like that, his life is just tilted in this other direction that he has no control over. And then 9 years later, he's back on course, but talking to him off camera, he's still really having a hard time finding another job. And he hasn't been able to go back to school. The school he was going to be an X-ray technician went out of business in that 9 years. So it's not like he can just turn around and say, hey, I'm back. The school's no longer there. He has to start from the beginning. But he's really struggling finding somebody and an organization and a business that really wants to take a gamble on him because he still has this on his record. It's going to take time to even get it off his record because it's so brand new.
Yeah, it will come off his record though, right? I mean, since
It
the
will.
conviction
Yeah.
was thrown out. I mean, and I just can't imagine the trauma of, like he said, he's sitting on his couch hanging out, thinking the maintenance people are coming to do a repair. And then the next thing you know, he ends up in prison for something that he knows he didn't do. It's just,
Yeah.
and this happens. He's not the only one this happens to, right? I mean, this
No.
is, unfortunately something that we continue to see.
Absolutely. And in our piece coming up at 6 o'clock tonight, we actually go county by county, showing how often this has happened since 1983, when these records were they first started storing these records. The numbers nationally, we're talking 3,500 people who've been exonerated since 1983. It may not sound like a lot, but I want you to think of 3,500 people whose individual lives have been forever changed by being accused, convicted, and sentenced to prison for a crime they did not commit. Those are the 3,500 that have come forward and had their cases exonerated. How many other people have had the exact same thing happen to them? And, remarkably, the statistics show a majority of these cases with exonerations happen because of either police misconduct or a witness coming forward giving false information. It's really scary.
It is scary. And are there any consequences for witnesses who are like, oh, I wasn't sure, but I said this?
No, because I mean, they're really not perjuring themselves. They
Yeah.
they just honestly weren't sure.
Hmm.
There's no ramification for the witness individually. As for the police department, Valle Ramos has filed suit against the city of Orlando and a couple of the officers that were involved in that. But even then, there's a cap of $200,000 for any lawsuit filed against a government or a police organization here in the state of Florida. So, you know, you can sue, but you're not going to get that much money back. That's going to make up for 2.5 years in prison and your life being totally changed.
Right. And the trauma that he experienced
And
being
the
in
trauma.
that
Yep.
environment. My gosh, I just can't imagine emotionally what that does to a person.
Yeah. And we go through that a little bit more in our piece at 6 o'clock.
All right, Erik Sandoval, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing the rest of your piece at 6 o'clock tonight.
We'll see you then. Thanks, Julie.
All right.